Ka hura tū manawa wiri, ka hura tū manawa pore, ka hura tū manawa uha. Ko tō manawa, ko tōku manawa, ko te manawa nui no rangi ka whakaputa ki te whaiao, ki te ao marama, ki tēnei punua pāho tātou. E kawe nei ngā kōrero paikea o ngā tikonohi o Whangara. Welcome to our very first Whangara Farms podcast series. And I say series number 1 because we're going to have more after this, fingers crossed. I'm your host, Hine Mihiata. Ko ngai te riwa I te hapū, ko ngā tikonohi te iwi, ko Whangara te ukaipo. And I'm excited to explore with you, our listeners, the rich tapestry of Whangara Farms, where our land and our people and our stories weave together to create a beautiful takapau for all of our future generations to come. So, we have 5 episodes as part of this series, and each of those episodes we're going to explore a key theme. Those key themes are our people, our taiao, our farm and the effect that the Cyclone Gabrielle had on our farms, diversification and what the future might hold for Whangara Farms. So, whether you are a seasoned farmer or you're a shareholder or you whakapapa to ngā tikonohi o Whangara, or you might just be somebody that's interested in what Whangara Farms is up to, I invite you to grab a cup of tea, whakarongo mai, and be inspired by the kōrero that will be shared with us by our guests. Today we're going to be talking about our people, and I'm proud to be part of an organisation that has set up a committee that is specifically dedicated to uplifting and empowering our people. And unlike mainstream organisations, we aim to do this not only for our Whangara Farm shareholders, but our wider Ngāti Konohi Whangara whānau community. So today we'll hear about the committee's visionary communication strategy that aims to foster a two-way conversation that will bridge that gap between the organisation, which is Whangara Farms, and our very valued whānau members. From digital platforms like this podcast to wānanga, we'll discover how the committee leverages technology and kanohi ki te kanohi hui to cultivate a sense of inclusivity and build a strong foundation of trust, transparency and a shared vision for the future. So, joining me today, I have 2 spunky guys with me who are in their very beautiful Whangara Farms attire, and I'll let them introduce themselves. Kei a koe te rākau kōrero e Hayden.
Kia ora ene mehata. Kia ora koutou. Ko Hayden Swann aho. My connection to Whangara and Pākara Incorporation is through my mother's father, Hemi Kauta Wharikino, and his grandparents, Mariah, hui o te rangi. She was a descendant of Kanohi and Hinikino down through Te Riwai. And Mariah married Wee Wharikino, and Wee was a descendant of Kanohi and Hiniremu. Down through Wahakapi.
Yep.
Kia ora, Ray.
Kia ora whānau, ko Ray Leach aho. I'm Whangara Farms' first business manager. With a surname like Leach, there's every great chance that we'll be whakapapa back, considering I'm a quarter Welsh and 3/4 English. I now call Gisborne home, and I'm privileged to work for Whangara Farms. So I sit across 3 subcommittees. Our People Subcommittee, this one, the Business Diversification Subcommittee and the Tau Subcommittee, and I link into the Farming Subcommittee as well.
Awesome.
So kia ora.
Kia ora, welcome tēnā kōrua, and we're going to be exploring those other subcommittees in later episodes, but today we're going to talk about our People Committee. So Hayden, I might ask you first, can you explain to me, or to us, to all of our listeners that are here today, the role of the Our People Committee?
Yeah, so the Our People Subcommittee came out of our strategic review, which did take us a couple of years to land on, the 4 the 4 subcommittees. The Our People Subcommittee, it's hugely important. 2 main work streams, I suppose, one being the engagement, communication, and the collection of our historical information and the dissemination of that. And then, of course, our governance review, making sure we're best fit for purpose, making sure that we're bringing our rangatahi through and that we're looking after our Pākeke.
Cool. That encapsulates our kaupapa so well, and we're going to take some time a little bit later on to dive into each of those. Ray, did you have anything else to add about what your thoughts of the role of our People Committee is?
I think that it's we're in a transformational piece now. We're moving into a whole new way of doing things, of engagement with our whānau. For instance, this podcast, instead of just changing your website and holding a different event, it's instant, it's out there, and we're communicating. You know, so for me, it's this transformation piece now. It's about how can we do things differently to relate to all age groups, from the rangatahi to the pakeke.
Yeah.
You know, so that's what's important, and that's what's really exciting about this now.
Yeah, that's right, bridging that gap, right, between the organisation and all of our shareholders and wider whānau. That's true. And so, Hayden, talk to me about who makes up the committee. Bit of a news flash. I'm also the co-chair of the committee, so tēnā koutou. But who else is on the committee?
Yeah, so Hinimi Hata, obviously from B5, as the representative there, the nomination. And from Tupara Whiti, we have Sharon Westrup, who is also a co-chair. Barney Tupara, who was our Pākarai Incorporation nomination, and myself as a board member nominated by the board. Yeah.
Cool. And Ray, you sit across our subcommittee too. What's your role at the committee table?
So basically, I'm there to facilitate the mahi that goes on, do a lot of mahi in the background. So the various projects that we're working on, such as the communication strategy, the governance review, the wānanga, the podcast, I have to pull all of that together.
Yeah.
And basically put all the pieces of the jigsaw together so we get the full picture.
Yeah.
So that's my role across this subcommittee and the others.
I like to describe Ray as our get stuff done man. We come up with all the ideas and we talk about all of our whakaro, and then Ray whips us all into shape, and we really aren't just a governance committee, but in fact a working group. So I heard you earlier, Hayden, refer to the farm committees that make up the Big Whangara Farms Board, Pākarai, Whiti and B5. Can you talk to us a little bit about the rationale used for selection for this subcommittee?
Yeah, so with the nominations, obviously each incorporation was able to not only go within their committee of management, but also to all of the whānau.
That's right. Yep.
And find somebody that was best fit for each of the subcommittees. People that had a real keen interest, somebody that had the networks, connections. It could be ahika, it could be kapahaka, it could be the Paike Whitireia Trust. And from there, the incorporations then put those forward to the board, and then the board made up the subcommittees.
Right, okay. That's cool. So we didn't just nominate ourselves, we were actually nominated by our representatives, and we now sit on those boards. Hei kanohi, hei waha mō tātou whānau. And I'm interested to know, and I'm sure our listeners are interested to know too, why you put yourself forward for this role in particular in our People Committee.
Foot tripped or shoulder tapped or?
Now let's be honest.
Either or.
No, hey, you've got to want to do this, and that's key. I know many of our whānau probably have a bit of a wondering about what goes on, you know, in committees. And hey, it's not that hard, and I think that more of us need to be involved and engaged, or talk to us and talk to our whānau about it. But yeah, I think that's the first thing, is having that keen desire to build on the work that our ancestors have done, those that have gone before us. You know, we've got well over 100 years of our incorporations here on Whangara. Apirana set them up, Tāpira. Yeah, a long time ago, and we've all come together. We've been inclusive, you know, and we've been doing this as a service role, I think, for our whānau, and that's the key. Wanting to do something for others, for your whānau, and wanting to make things better.
Yeah, that's cool. And because I sit on the committee too, I just want to also add, in case anybody is interested, why I put myself forward and why I was happy to take up the nomination and join this committee is because I think that it's really important as a committee who's wholeheartedly focused on our people, that there's a rangatahi voice at that table. And actually, interesting enough, I've just turned 30 and somebody told me the other day that I'm not a rangatahi anymore. So I might actually put it out there. If there is anybody that is rangatahi that's interested to learn about governance, we're really keen to bring more rangatahi on. And in fact, one of the streams that we're going to be working on is actually establishing a rangatahi committee for the purpose of growing our rangatahi. Because at the end of the day, they're going to be the ones sitting at this table.
Yeah, absolutely. Tēnei mihi ata, I was considered a rangatahi at 36 when I first started, 2009, you know, and that was a co-opted role and a rangatahi role, and much like when you first started, you know, and so those are key positions to get our people involved. Encourage everybody to have a talk.
I wouldn't mind being a rangatahi if you can stretch it to 61. I'm young at heart. You know,
it's really interesting because I actually done a few years ago. I was 25, so I at 30 I still consider myself a rangatahi.
Absolutely.
But at 25 I did this governance workshop, and it was for rangatahi that are interested in going onto governance boards, and the age range for that actually went up to 35.
Yes.
And we talked about whether that needed to be extended or brought down, because if you look at probably like the medium age range of Māori governance boards, it is at that higher end. So rangatahi in that sense actually probably can jump a little bit up higher. However, I do still think that it's really important that we bring in rangatahi at that really young end of our rangatahi spectrum, because they're the ones that are coming through with the incredible ideas. They're going to probably be the ones listening to this podcast and sharing it with their kaumata and really driving our engagement with our wider
I was
shareholders.
thinking about that. One of the restrictions, of course, is mahi.
Yeah,
you know,
true.
people having flexibility around their mahi and being in a position to be able to go to meetings and attend hui. But now I think with the technology and Zoom that we have, we've got a lot more flexibility for that.
That's a good point. And I know, Hayden, you're a really busy man. You're the principal of Makaraka School.
Right.
Makaraka School. How often, this is not in my notes, so I'm just genuinely curious, and I'm sure our listeners are too. How many hours do you say, or effort, time do you think is required for a rangatahi position, or just a general position?
Great question.
Yeah, that is a good question. I think you can make it manageable, and when it is a passion and an interest, you know, you can easily fit it in around what you do, and have that real heart to heart with your employer, you know, with the people in your organisations that you work with, or your whānau, to be able to have the support to do it, because if they can see what my employees have always seen is that reciprocity of it. You know, I mean, I've been fortunate and blessed to take all the schools that I've belonged to, worked for, out to Whangara for our school camps, for our wānanga, you know.
Seed collection.
Seed collection, yeah, you know, and so having that connection, that reciprocity, and through those networks, it's a two-way thing.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I hear you.
I think also it's really important that we're engaging a formal. I hate the word process, but I suppose it's the way that we're going to do this. You've got to identify who the rangatahi are, what talents they have, because we don't know within the whānau where all the superstars or potential superstars are.
Yeah.
And then we need to engage with them, maybe through a podcast or a wānanga or the Rangatahi Council.
Yeah.
And that's their first stepping stone from that council into governance.
Yeah.
To see if they like it, to see whether they want to contribute in that way, to see whether they've got the time.
That's right.
Because then from that Rangatahi Council, they step into a subcommittee. From the subcommittee, they step into the management committee. And then from the management committee to the board. And those are the stepping stones that we're creating now. But you have to start with that talent. We have to find out where it is, who they are, what they can do and what they want to do.
That's right, and because we've got so many shareholders and whānau members that might not even reside on the East Coast anymore, right? So getting into, I think that's actually maybe a perfect segue into what are you calling it? The matrix?
Yeah, so I mean, there's lots of names. It's like the movie The Matrix, but it's basically a skills matrix. So we're in the strategic plan. It states that we need a minimum of 100 people identified. That's right. In terms of their skill base, their age, and so we can actually, depending on the opportunity within the governance structure and the Rangatahi Council, we can identify who they are, and that will be drawn from the management committees and the whānau and so on and so forth. So we're pulling together those 100 first people in terms of where are they, who are they, how old, and what can they bring to the table. Because before it was about nomination and putting your hand up, but now we can actually be able to see a body of 100 people in terms of the real power that we've got there, in terms of talent and skills.
And it can be hard for Māori in particular, right, to put our hands up and to nominate ourselves, because it's drilled into us from a very young age that kore te kumare, kore rongo tōna ke reka. The kumara never speaks of its own sweetness. I'm just interested though, so if I put my name onto this matrix, onto this register, I talk about my talents, what happens with that information? If I'm a listener right now and I go, oh yeah, well, if they're going to take that info from me, what then happens with it?
So what happens then is that we can then identify where your skill sets are, maybe where your ambitions are. We're still formulating this skills matrix,
right.
so it's not finished.
Yeah.
But and it will always evolve anyway. But from that, we can then say, for a real example, if there's then for the Rangatahi Council, you may need someone that's strong in the communication space.
Yeah.
Well, there could be someone that works in comms for Vodafone or whatever. But at this point in time, we don't know.
Yeah.
So it's about identifying them so then we can put them into the right space of where they will be engaged and interested, and they will bring that youthful exuberance and passion, you know, that like people like us, some of us old crusties, we're a bit weather worn, you know. So we need that young blood coming through and those skill sets, because they're very different skill sets now. You know, the way you interact with the world is very different to the way that I interact with the world, you know. I know the best way to communicate with my daughter, who's 29 years old, is with a text, because I know she'll answer the text.
Yeah, don't try and call us. We don't
or Instagram or Snapchat. So, you know, but we can learn from you just as you can learn from us.
Yeah, that's right. And before we jump into, so that's one of the initiatives that we're driving. We're going to talk shortly about some of the other initiatives. But I did hear you mention earlier about seed collection, right? So that could potentially be something that if we had on a register somebody that's interested in taiao or in ecology.
Great example.
Yeah, we could say. Can you talk to us a little bit before we talk into some of our other initiatives? What was that? Seed collection?
So basically we're going into the tail subcommittee.
Sorry,
but it is people related, because we need skills and we need to create opportunities. So we've got funding from MPI to plan out and create a native nursery. Yeah. So we will draw seeds from our bush blocks on Whangara, Pākarai, wherever. We've got many bush blocks. So as a concept, so in terms of seed collection, for instance, I went out with Hayden's seniors and we collected seeds from B5, you know, hundreds of seeds that are now being propagated at EIT. What this means is this year, probably, the native nursery is going to start to be built. So it's going to be a real thing, and we're going to start creating maybe up to 100,000 seedlings a year. It's a 24/7, 365-day operation. We will need someone of skill to be able to run that native nursery for us. And if we can draw from our whānau, and we can, and we do know we can, because that skill set is there, all the better. So, you know, we've already identified, even before the skills matrix has been completed, we're already identifying people from within our own hapū, iwi, shareholders, who can fill those positions and want to fill those positions.
And because there is a desire out there, right? There was something on Facebook the other day and somebody mentioned about can we employ more of our own on the farms, and that would be a perfect opportunity for somebody. And I know, shout out, you went out seed, what do we call it?
Seed harvesting. It's seed harvesting, actually.
Seed harvesting, sorry.
With me being Pākehā, you know, I didn't know half the trees. You know, I can tell what an elm is and an oak is, but, you know, I learned so much, and I've learned a heap, and we're working in with EIT. And it was just taking the kids out there, you know, and I remember there was a couple of little rat bags I was helping get up the hill at the end, and so I was at the back with them, and they said, "Mister, what's all this about?" And I said, "Well, you see that hill up there?" I said, "One day when you're my age, all of that will be restored into indigenous forest that you've just come out of." And they went, "No," and I went, "Yes."
That's cool.
And that's how they sort of visualised why they were collecting the seeds and what it really meant.
Because whilst our subcommittees are discrete, they are also interconnected,
Totally.
inextricably linked.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You know, and toitu te whenua, toitu te tangata. You know, what's going to be good for our land is going to be good for all of us, and our business and our farm as well.
Yeah, that's right. And you went out with Arahia Gibson.
Arahia Gibson,
boy,
bless. Yeah.
AKA Gucci. Shout out. Ray was very impressed and loved working with you,
yeah.
Gooch.
Also, Leach, whānau.
Yeah, that's right.
So we being the Pākehā cousin. But and she was great. She's just done a 3-year course, government funded course, and she's got the skill set.
Yeah.
And a big shout out also to Ron Taihapa from EIT, who introduced us. You know, so the three of us went and collected, and Ron was sharing with us his knowledge. And Aria was really interested because she's from Whangara.
Yeah, that's right.
You know, it's her whenua that we were walking on and collecting the seeds from. And so she can help propagate those in the native nursery that we're using at EIT.
Yeah.
So that's how all of this works. And it was a great point from Hayden in terms of this is an holistic approach to business and being a people. Because the decisions that are made in farming can impact upon Tau. Tau can impact upon our people can impact on business diversification. So that they all have to come back to our kaupapa.
That's right.
Everything has to come back to that and our guiding principles.
Yeah.
So that's why this is such a transformational strategic plan for Whangara, which is why I came. It's very, very exciting.
Yes.
This doesn't happen every day. And as Hayden always tells me, I've got the best job in the world.
I would have to agree with that. And we're going to talk now about some of our initiatives, and one of the biggest initiatives here is creating a two-way communication strategy. And I think that in itself, again, the seed harvesting would have been a perfect opportunity to capture that and share that with our whānau, and then people might not even know that we're doing that kind of thing. You know, so Hayden, can you talk to us about the communication strategy?
Yeah, so obviously engagement is key, and one of our goals is incrementally having 5% more participation. I think we'll smash that.
Well,
I think we'll smash that. Yeah,
Nice.
absolutely. And when we start joining the dots on some of these projects, and people can see a meaningful way that they can contribute and participate and get on farm and do some of these activities like seed collecting, like plant or harvesting, like planting, and then there'll be weeding and other opportunities. And then over time, be proud of their input and effort. So having those tangible and wānanga, where we come together and we share our history, we share our stories, and we listen to our Pākehā, and we encourage our rangatahi. Being meaningfully connected with our ahika, with our Pākehā Whatireia Trust, our marae, and that's something with our Ngāti Kuruhitanga that we are working on too, is one of our goals within our People Subcommittee. Yeah,
that's cool. And because often when you're part of an incorporation that has one AGM at the end of the year, that I feel like sometimes in past, people might have only felt that there was that one opportunity to engage with our boards, with our farming, our whānau that are actually out working on the farm, and this communication strategy aims to change that, right?
Yeah, it's a generalisation, but I mean, incorporations are a commercial model.
Yeah,
true. It is a Pākehā model that was put on us, and so out of that we've focused predominantly on the farming enterprises usually. And the business side of it. And with our 4 subcommittees now, we've really created the emphasis on that holistic view and bringing our whānau more closely to our land and to our business and the operations that we're running, because together we're going to be stronger and better.
Yeah.
And there's not just one thing that will fix all of this, or build a bridge, or get that in, because engagement is different to communication. Engagement is connection.
Yeah.
True.
It's about two-way, it's about listening and talking.
Kia ora.
Hopefully more listening than talking. Yeah. And then we'll know what the expectations are for us as a business from within our own people.
Yeah.
So it's about having a really funky website where it's interactive. Our stories are captured and archived on there. The podcast is on there. We've got a podcast, you know. I mean, that's going to be broadcast. It'll be on the website.
Yeah.
The farm just underwent a BBC documentary. That can be on the website, because if people didn't have the facility of YouTube or didn't know how to get onto YouTube, then their rangatahi can tell them how to get onto the website, and they can see Richard and Ingrid talk about silver ferns and sustainability.
Yeah.
So it's about the podcast, it's about the whānau. That was something new for me, which is a tremendous way to do business and a tremendous way to learn together. And Barney's been instrumental in bringing our first Pakeketanga whānau on the 15th of July, and he'll be talking to that later.
Yeah.
So, but it's also, like Hayden says, about increasing the participation on the whenua. It is about a governance review, so we can have that succession planning. So there's lots of different platforms and lots of pieces that make the whole.
Yeah.
And yeah, but also just getting around the table with the community groups and having korero to see where they're coming from and what their expectations are, and to explain what it is that we're doing.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And co-design, right?
Yeah,
It's
yeah,
explain what we
co-design.
do, but we want their input.
Just about to say that, because whilst we're here to lead, we're also here to be led too. Because we don't have the mandate on all expertise and knowledge, and we're here to facilitate that, and getting the names, building a list of people who are interested, and then having those ideas come and bubble up to the surface too will only make us better and stronger, because we know what we know now, but we don't know, the opportunities that are out there.
Yeah, that's right. And once we've got that matrix too, and we can see it, not only does that matrix help us identify where our talents are, but where our potential gaps are too, right?
Totally, yeah.
And so our people will be working on identifying opportunities for our people, for growth, so that we can fill those gaps. And I think, I wonder if that kind of played a role in this mahi that you're doing around governance building, and
that's an important part of it, yeah. So one of the key strategies is around the engagement communication, and then we've got the governance, review governance. We always got to look back at ourselves, and we've got to evaluate what we're doing now and how can we make ourselves better. And that means building our capacity and capability from within as well. So places like the Institute of Directors have a place in order to help us be better governors.
so the farms will put our committee members through the Institute of Directors?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, yeah, and also the Whangara Farms Board brings together all of our committee members, and we talk together, because when we're all in the room together, that's when we're connected, and we can build on those ideas that people have, and we're all equal, we're all level, like there's all ideas are respected, and they're all good ideas.
Yeah, and I think diversity of thought is really important, right? And I think that Whangara Farms at a governance level creates a really safe space for people to bring in different ideas and explore different opportunities without feeling any kind of whakamā, because I know that that's something that often, like I said before, when you put an idea out there, we kind of think, we go back into our shell because we've always had that whakatauki around e kore te kumara.
But if you look at your journey in Imiata, so rangatahi, representative on B5, then onto the Our People Subcommittee.
Yeah.
Yeah. Now a bona fide member of the B5 Management Committee, and now a co-chair.
Yeah, and actually even before that, I was lucky enough to have received a Whangara B5 scholarship. So we now have that pool of rangatahi there who have successfully gone through tertiary education, that we can draw on and we can work with, and hopefully we'll build out this rangatahi council. The beautiful thing about having that those scholarships too is we've kind of not moved away, we've absolutely definitely are still supporting our tertiary educated students through scholarships, but it's also widened that scholarship scope to include rangatahi that might not be going on to tertiary education, but instead of going to pursue trades, for example, and there's pūts out there to support them. And because in the future, we're not going to all just need lawyers or accountants. Our farm hands, our tradies, our roofers. My brother is a roofer at the moment. Those skills are priceless when it comes to Our future. So,
Upper Tukani scholarship has
Yeah.
been around for a long time,
Yeah.
and Pakara followed that model and have had a scholarship for a number of years, and we've done the same. I mean, last year we had 4 totally different, occupations or
cool.
types of study.
What were they? Quickly.
Yeah, well, I mean, everything from architecture to farm cadet.
Great.
Oh,
Yeah,
cool.
yeah.
So architecture, they can come and help build our houses. Farm cadet, absolutely. What were the other 2?
Accountancy, which
Great.
is great, and the other one was in the science field.
In this, yeah.
Science field. Yeah.
Perfect. Because in the future, we want to be able to employ our own, right?
Yeah,
At the end of the day.
Absolutely.
Yeah, totally. Cool. So we are talking about all of these initiatives, and they're already underway, right? I had a question here around when will our whānau see the actual changes, but there's already change in the pipeline already, right?
Well, they're seeing a change today. This is a podcast.
Yeah.
It's a first,
Yeah.
and it's instant. So they're seeing change right here, right now. On the 15th of July, the Pakekitanga Wānanga, so it's another event. It's not the AGM's wonderful, field day is wonderful,
Yeah.
but now we've got a Wānanga,
Yeah.
so that we can bring learnings in and support our Pakeke.
Yeah.
So they're going to see that in July.
And that is a short way away whānau. So just quickly around the wānanga, we're going to wrap it in a matariki theme because we know that matariki is a time that we should be coming together, reflecting on the past, understanding the present and looking forward to the future. So yes, absolutely a part of that wānanga. We got some funding from Internet NZ to upskill our pakeke with technology and digital. We're also going to be working closely with the Marae Committee around potentially including a cultural capability program as well around whai kōrero, karanga, and most excitingly to me, waiata. And that we can learn about and so that we can all share these experiences together as whangara whānau.
Well, there's also going to be the revamp of the website, which will be important to capture and archive our stories. And for film content like this, and to make it more interactive, that's going to happen this year. So that's something else that they're going to see. So there'll be another Wānanga after this Wānanga. So there's going to be many, many more things coming forward. The ongoing broadcasting of these podcasts. It's not just a series of 5; it could be a series of 20. We could be going out there and doing a production on seed collection and propagation.
That'd be
There's
cool.
lots of really cool stories. We could do one on this farming staff, whatever, or the young shepherds. It doesn't, there's so much content out there. We could be going forever.
Series 2, baby, watch out.
Prior to Paitawhiri Kia Tina, we've always been at the learning edge, the cutting edge, the leading edge. We've always been innovative. We've always been the forerunners to innovation on farm, research, and doing things different like this today. So,
yeah, that's cool. And I'm going on to my next question now, which is looking towards the future as we start wrapping up this episode of our series around whangara farms, and in particular here our people. What would success look like for you as an individual is question 1, and just FYI question 2 is going to be what will success look like for you as a collective of not only our shareholders but our wider whangara Ngāti Konohi members that are out there that we're working with. So question 1 is success. What does success look like for you as an individual?
Well, I can walk away and Whangara Farms is in a better place than what it is today, which is a high level because our expectations are right up there. As I say, we continue to innovate and be better. But I think that for me, bringing through our rangatahi and helping to make them feel safe in this space because it can be daunting to start with.
That's true.
To encourage and to help learn. I mean, it's been 14 years and I still feel like a baby, but in many respects, it's actually quite a long time.
Yeah. What about you, Ray?
I think success for me, I think a big realisation for me is that for the first time in my life, not the first time, but unusually, there was a realisation when I first came that I wasn't just employed by Whangara Farms. There are 2,500 shareholders, 6,500 plus hapū iwi, We're representing a whole body of people, and we're creating a legacy to move forward, and so we should feel privileged to do that.
Yes.
And so what does success look like? Multifaceted. It's true two-way engagement with our hapū, our iwi, our whānau, the creation of jobs and opportunities in the governance space, but also in the career space. Doing funky things differently, in terms of how we communicate. Getting guides from within the hapū in terms of, what are their expectations for whangara. Let's not forget the farm is critically important. It's our engine, it's who we are, it's how we're the custodians of the whenua. So for me, what would success look like is that when someone walks up to you, to Hayden or you in the street and go, oh my word, we are now one. I like to call it taking the farms out of Whangara farms. This is Whangara. It's about people, it's about planet, and it's about prosperity. So for me, that's it. That's how I see it. And in 10 years' time, I'm fishing anyway.
That's awesome. I love that. And I think that whangara, as a whānau, as a hapū, as the custodians of our land, we are one already. But because, like you said earlier, Hayden, we have been structured into under a pākā model, like an incorporation, that i etahi wā ka anoho wehe tātou. So long-term success looks like actually we're coming together, we're collaborating, we're using each other's resources. That's awesome, and committing ourselves to ensure that happens for our rangatahi so that they don't have to work through that.
And to be honest, in the last 18 months there have been a lot of successes. We've got our first communication strategy. We're undergoing our first third-party governance review. We're creating a skills matrix. We're going to have more events so we can increase the participation of our whānau and our shareholders on the whenua. We've done some really cool things already, and there's bigger things to come.
I feel like we may have actually even just covered off that
I think so.
success for wider whānau aid. I wonder if we've also covered this part then, but going to include it in case you've got anything else to add around your individual vision for what will be just business as usual in the space in 10 years' time?
That's an interesting question. What will be business? Because we are so innovative and we are moving at quite a high cadence at the moment in terms of what we are doing differently from being a farming entity and incorporation based on sheep and beef farming to innovate in that space, but at the same time bring to life all of our taia, massive space there because we've got climate change beating on our door. We have 30 kilometres of coastline that we have to protect, and we've got our moana out there, our kapatakai as well, that's been smothered by a lot of the sediment that's coming down. Our gorges, our rivers and our streams. So, it's going to be that holistic approach to our environment, to our people, and at the same time, we have to be cognizant of running a business that still keeps its head above water, that is profitable, because that has to feed back in and pay for the initiatives that we're looking to do.
Couldn't agree more. Ray, anything to add?
Yeah, I mean that's why I'm here. It's for me. It's really exciting to be involved in something that is, again, I use the word again, transformational. In 10 years' time, we may have planted, restored, maybe 40 hectares of our retired farmland. We could be, people going, my God, you've got to watch that podcast. It's awesome. Have you seen? There's a farm doing a podcast. And proper engagement, but bringing our rangatahi through in 10 years' time. Where will you be sitting? Where will Hayden be sitting? You know, where will the ones we haven't identified yet be sitting? Through the Rangatahi Council and so on and so forth. So it is multifaceted, it is all connected, but also business diversification. We've already made investments in high tech. We're in the innovation space.
Yeah.
We're looking to do more things, aquaculture, horticulture, ecotourism. There's commercial property. There's so many things that we're getting involved in right now. And in 10 years' time, those investments will look, you know, hopefully a lot healthier.
Yeah.
And well, they're healthy now, but a lot healthier then. But for me, I'd like to focus in on our vision, which is the well-being of our people.
Yes.
And well-being can be people, planet, or prosperity.
Yeah.
So for us, we have to factor all of those things, whether it's health, education, job opportunities, or just the mighty dollar, so we can pay for all these initiatives. Because we can't forget that. We need to turn a dollar to turn some goodness into goodness. So, yeah.
Te mea nui o te ao, he tangata.
I was actually going to wrap up this episode very much with that whakatauki. He hara te mea nui o tēnei ao, he tangata, he tangata, he tangata. Thank you to very much Hayden and Ray for joining us today and exploring the mahi that our People Committee is doing. Also joining us at the tepu today is the incredible Barney Tupara, also affectionately known as Uncle Barn. So if you hear me referring to him as Uncle Barn, that's all we all know him as well. And you also have a seat at our People Committee, and I'm really interested to understand, and I'm sure all of our listeners will be interested to understand as well, why you joined the People Committee, but also let us know a little bit about yourself too. Ko wai koe no whea koe, kia koe te rākau kōrero.
Kia ora ngā mihi kia koe e hini mihi ata. Nō tūranga, ahau, e maha aku marae, he urihuki o ngā hapū me ngā iwi katoa o te tairawhiti me ki, no whāngarā hoki awau te taha o taku māma. Aku mahi, hei roia, I roto I te rōpū whakamana te tiriti, Waitangi Tribunal. So to all of our listeners, it's an honour to be here. So I'm born and bred locally, went to school here and so on and so on. I'm a lawyer by profession, and if you're interested, here's my card.
Cheers.
But having said that, going back to your first question, Hini Mihiata, I have to say it's an honour to be part of Whangara Farms, to be a member of a subcommittee for the board, but also to be on the Pākara A and other blocks management committee. And I think, in answer to your question, it really goes back to why I put my name forward as a co-opted member for Pākara. Two parts really was, I'm not a farmer, so I know nothing about how farms operate.
Guilty, me too.
But what interested me was, because we're in a time of change now, was te reo tikanga and its relevance and importance in a corporate structure, and I was interested to see our board, Whangara Farms, actually lead that in terms of what is a legal entity that's Māori kaupapa driven and so on. So that kind of interested me, and I put that in my covering letter. But also the environmental side of looking after our whenua as kaitiaki, and also our takutai moana, our coastline. So that inspired me to put my name forward. And then, of course, our People Subcommittee came along, and I looked at the strategic plan for Whangara Farms. And what interested me the most was not only communication with all of our shareholders, but communication with those who aren't shareholders too, because we are and have responsibility to look after our whenua and also our environment on behalf of not just our shareholders, but also our whānau, whānui, our hapū iwi. So that interested me, and hence I put my name forward, but also to be a Pākara representative as well. So here I am, part of that group, and what an area that I'm promoting a lot for the Our People Subcommittee is in regards to our pakeke, our akoroma kuima. And the reason why I'm interested in that is an experience that I had from when I was A little kid, I remember Mum used to drag us along to the AGMs, and your dad, Derek, and myself would be out the front playing rugby, and would only be there for the food.
Bull rush, eh?
Yes, he did back in the day.
Brilliant.
But Mum took us to all the AGMs, and what interested me was how our old people make an effort to come to an AGM. And then, given that, and that continues to be the case, and their absolute interest in what has been going on in the various reports, what inspired me was to think, what else can inspire our older folk to become involved or have a say, even in board decision making? Is there a way in which they can contribute rather than wait to the AGM?
Yeah.
And of course we have the farm visit and so on, but there's more that we can offer for our, as an opportunity for our old people to participate, because we do have a lot to offer. And like myself, my good friend Ray over there, we kind of arrived at that age, I guess.
We have,
if I can say
mate.
that, with due respect.
Yeah.
So as a result, and of course, and we use the heading our People Subcommittee because that's in the strategic plan. There's probably a far more eloquent description that could be applied into reo to that, to our rōpū. Having said that, though, communication and the communication strategy that has been developed through our mahi is not just, from my point of view, just disseminating information.
Yeah.
It's actually a two-way process, and feeding back, and our people being empowered and given the opportunity to participate, not just attend a hui and listen and maybe ask one or two questions, no, to actually be part of the decision making. And a strategy like that needs to be effective, but also provide opportunity. And I think it's for our older folk and for our rangatahi too to lead what that might look like, rather than to put a model in front of them and say this is how we're going to communicate through wānanga, or however which way our people want to involve themselves in communication. That's what I see the strategy being, a vehicle to implement something like that. So it is two-way, but also importantly, it's actually coming together and moving forward together, not just our board, our shareholders, but also whāngarā farms and our hapū iwi moving together. Now, there's a responsibility we have, we're kaitiaki, to leave our whenua and our takutai moana better than how we found it or how it was given to us in this generation. And we can't, with respect, it can't just be done through the board. It has to be done through the board, whānau, hapū and iwi. Nō reira, taku whakamara mā mō taku hikoi, I raro I te maru o tēnei kaupapa.
Yeah, and that's awesome. And I have felt in our hui your passion for ensuring that our kaumātua also have a voice at our table. And I'm aware that we are developing or creating, planning a wānanga that actually have our pakeke at the core, at the forefront of its focus. We got some funding from NetNZ, or was it
Internet NZ?
Internet NZ, who are going to support us in empowering and growing our pakeke with technology. Talk to us a little bit more about how that whakaaro came about.
Yes, no, thank you for that. It's really about the world we live in now and how communication can be implemented, and it's using technology to do that, given that we're spread everywhere, even overseas.
That's true.
Probably half of our whānau from Whangara are living overseas now rather than at home on the papakainga, as it were. So it's the use of technology, not only to disseminate information, but also for our people, not just for farm business either, though, to communicate with each other, our tamariki mokopuna and our pakeke with each other. Because there's a well-being component to all of this too. And it's being able to not only communicate, but also what inspired me around this way of thinking is to look after our hauora, our well-being, to care for each other, but using technology as a means to at least communicate with each other around things like that. Because we are in a different world now. Having said that, though, what's really and should not be lost is that our kanohi, our tinana, whilst we have technology, where opportunity presents itself to actually come together in person. Hence our day on Saturday, the 15th of July, as a starting point for us all to come together, our pakeke, koro, kuia, and also our rangatahi, to not only celebrate ourselves but matariki, and then what's important to me is what happens after that.
That's right.
And it's to have an ongoing opportunity for wānanga, sharing of kōrero, recording of that kōrero. So invite our older folk, be prepared to participate, to come along, to kōrero. And I just have to close by saying it's not limited to those who are shareholders. But this is about whānau hapū iwi too.
Yeah, and I'm really excited actually and looking forward to the opportunity to be working closely with our marae committee, with Paikawhitireia Trust, to develop this wānanga and include elements of our culture that doesn't just sit in that corporate world with Whangara farms, but also including potentially wānanga around whaikorero, karanga, waiata, which we hope will be available at the wānanga on the 15th of July. And to wrap this segment up, we're really interested, and I'm sure our listeners are interested as well, to understand what is your blue sky thinking vision for the future in terms of our people and for Whangara farms.
Oh. He pātai tino rau e tēnā. What an awesome question. My vision is that we have an entity, which isn't an entity, that we don't have a board of directors as a corporate model for our people, that our future is in the exercise and implementation of our tino rangatiratanga, where we have decision-making processes that are based on tikanga, how our tipuna did things back in the day pre-European times, how decisions were made based on whakapapa, different roles in the village as it were, and different contributions, that we're not driven by a model that's been imposed upon us, with all due respect, where we've had to fit almost a square peg into a round hole, but instead that it's driven by our whānau hapū iwi in terms of a concept of decision-making, how we look after our whenua, how we look after our coastline. A model which is representative of all, not just shareholders, of all those who belong to the whenua, the haukainga, those who whakapapa to the whenua, and in the middle or intermingled in all of that is our kōrero from our mātua tipuna, which drives us forward in those values that come with that, so that we can still do business, whether it be a farm operation or we diversify into other areas. There's still a profit to be made, meki, but there's different values or approaches to that, such as koha, such as wānanga for decision making, such as te reo tikanga, such as identifying with pai care, our marae, and so on and so on. So we actually say to the structures that we have now no more, that we have our own way of doing our own thing. But at the same time, you know what the priority is? Looking after the whenua and our taputai moana. And if there's pūtea to be generated from that, so be it. But that's only part of it. Really, it's the well-being of our people and the future, our mokopuna. So my moko, when he's my age, I want him to go to Whangara and say to himself, I belong here.
Yeah.
Okay, I might have shares that I inherited from my koro, but those are no longer called shares.
Yeah.
Those are a sense of belonging to the whenua. That's not necessarily categorised as a shareholding, because he's standing next door to a whanaunga who comes from a koro who didn't have shares, but they stand together as kaitiaki of the whenua, and from that is generated. And this is one thing I've put to the Pākarae Committee, is the wealth of our people is not necessarily measured in monetary terms, and so on. So that's my vision, is that we are wealthy, but not necessarily in monetary terms.
Ooh.
Kia ora.
Now that is a vision that I will back.
Exactly.
Mic drop. You are on fire today, Uncle. Tēnā koe. And you are absolutely right. I think we are in a transformative period of time where we're moving out of the structures that have been imposed on us, and moving into a space where we're truly embodying tino rangatiratanga. No reira, tēnā koe I ra whakaro. And we, in a previous episode around taiao, we actually spoke around how taiao, it isn't just and our whenua isn't just a commodity, or we're not even referring just to the land or to the ocean or to the sea. When we say taiao, we're actually referring back to a living, breathing entity that we whakapapa to, and that we will do everything that we can that in order to ensure our taiao is healthy for our future generations. So our mokopuna can stand firmly on our ground and say, this is where I'm from. So no reira, tēnā koe me o whakaro, me o maha, me o mana whakatike harea mei te rangi nei, tēnā koe. O tira tēnā koe hoki, Ray, ki Hayden hoki i te rangi nei.
Kia ora, ngā mihi.
Kia ora.
Cut.
Kia ora tātou e te whānau. He mihi tēnei ki a tātou, no te mea ko au, ko hara mai tēnei wā ki te whakamārama. He tono hoki ki a tātou ki a koutou mo tētahi rā whakahirihira e heke mai ana. My name is Barney Tupara. I have the honour of being a member of the Whangara Farms Board of Directors, a subcommittee of that group, as well as being on the Pākarai A and other blocks management committee. I'm here today, together with Hini Mihiata, to promote and talk about a wonderful day that is planned for Saturday the 15th of July at Whangara Marae, starting at 9, going to about 3. The day is going to be to celebrate pakeke, rangatahi and also matariki. How that came about was a whakaaro on my part some months ago when I looked at those who attend our AGMs, and it interested me that most, if not all, were older folk, such as myself. And I thought to myself, how else can we communicate with our older people, but more importantly, involve them in not just Whangara Farms, mahi and activities and decision making, but involve them in terms of what's going on in the village, what's going on at Whangara. So that's what inspired me to consider possibly a day where we could all come together. But what also came about was thinking about what about our young people supporting our older folk and us walking together. And I have to say, my daughter, who's very keen to come along on this day, to tautoko her papa. I just found out what TikTok was the other day, so that's how far behind I am. But on that, we're going to have keynote speakers to come to talk about being pakeke, even young people. What does that mean to them in this te ao huri, this world of change that we live in right now? We encourage you all to come on that day. I'm going to pass it over to Hini Mihiata. She's going to talk about the overriding or the underpinning kaupapa for the day, which is matariki. Kia ora, Hini Mihiata.
Yeah, we're really excited and looking forward to be collaborating with our beautiful marae committee, Pai Kia Whitireia Trust as well, on this day to also include our wānanga and kōrero around whaikōrero, karanga, waiata, and as a kapahaka person, that's what I'm most looking forward to. We've also got a crew coming in to record parts of our wānanga, parts of our day, so that we can put that into a repository for our future generations to look back on and see what we were up to and see the growth of our people in the future. We are going to wrap this entire kaupapa in matariki, where we're going to look at the past, admire what our kaumatua have done, understand the present, and look forward to the future. We're really looking forward to sharing that day with you on the 15th of July at the marae, all together, Whangara Farm shareholders, Ngāti Kunohi, people that whakapapa to Ngāti Kunohi, our wider whānau from Whangara, all welcome to join us.
It'll be awesome, and I really encourage you all to come out. Come out on that day. We're going to have keynote speakers. We're going to talk about things that are important to us as older folk, but also our rangatahi as well. But importantly, part of the day is for our old people, older folk, to learn about technology. IT, as we call it these days. So bring your phone that you normally use to communicate with your mokopuna, or your tablet, with respect that you might play games on, and also your laptop.
Solitaire.
Yeah, I know how to play that. And all of that, bring that along, and we're going to have a workshop or wānanga on how to use the technology. And I think that's really important in this day and age as a way of communicating with each other. Often we can't attend a hui o wānanga, but we might zoom in. And that's something that happens more often today, even for our old people. And I think it's important. Many of our whānau live in Australia, for example, and it's important we keep in touch with them, us older folk who are back here on our papa kainga. Ka pai.
Ka pai.